Hi, I'm Mike Brewer, pastor of the Blue Ash Presbyterian Church, and this is Mike's midweek message. Thanks for dropping in. For a little show and tell today, I have brought a tiny piece of history, at least a forgotten corner of Presbyterian history. This little piece of lead is a communion token. In the Presbyterian Church in its early days in Scotland, before a person could come to the communion table, they needed to have a token to be admitted to the table. This was a kind of ticket that got you into the communion service. Communion wasn't celebrated frequently, a couple of times a year, and so it was a big deal when the Lord's Supper was offered to the congregation. And in the weeks prior to the celebration of the sacrament, the elders, the leaders in the Presbyterian congregation, would go out and visit each family. And they would inquire of that family about their moral uprightness, their quality of life, and they would test them, literally test them on their ability to recite the catechism, which is a series of questions and answers that lay out basic Christian beliefs, and their ability to recite the Lord's Prayer and the Ten Commandments. And if a family passed the examination, they were granted a communion token that allowed them to come to the table. If the family was not up to muster, no token and no communion when the day came around. This particular token is from Lady Glenorchy's Free Church. I know nothing about that congregation. And on the back is the rationale for communion tokens. At the top it says, "Do this in remembrance of me," which of course are words that Jesus spoke at the Lord's Supper. And under it, the token quotes Paul, "But let a man examine himself," which was part of Paul's advice to the Corinthian Christians, that they should examine themselves and check their conscience and their conduct before coming to the Lord's table. Eventually, the practice of communion tokens fell out of favor, and although I don't want to be a smug 21st century man looking back at a 16th century practice and passing judgment on it, it's easy to see the flaw in the logic of communion tokens. I see two problems, really. One is that Paul suggested that a person ought to examine themselves before coming to the table. He says nothing about someone else passing judgment on their readiness to come for the Lord's Supper. So there's one big matter. And the second problem is that with a system like communion tokens, you could easily come to believe that you had somehow earned your place at the table. That by your good conduct and your learning and your good Christian theology and your uprightness of life, that you deserved to sit down at the table of Jesus Christ and share in the bread and the wine. Nothing, of course, could be further from the truth. Everyone who comes to the Lord's table comes as a beggar. No one who can claim they have a rightful place there. The Lord's table is, in that sense, like Christianity itself. It is a gift. It is a gift freely given from a loving God through Jesus Christ. Paul says we are saved by grace. And grace, of course, is something we cannot earn. If we earned it, it would be our just desert. But we can't earn it. Now, some people object, of course, that if you talk too much about grace, it will make people lazy. And they will say, well, if I'm saved by grace anyway, why should I try to do anything good with my life? It doesn't make any difference. Well, here's why that argument falls apart. I've known for many years that my salvation is a gift from God, unearned and undeserved. But it hasn't kept me from trying to live a life that is pleasing to God, because I hope that by living well and sharing love and helping others, that I am living in such a way as to say thank you to God. There's the difference. Some people believe we can only be motivated to live well out of fear. I believe gratitude is the better motivator. So as we approach Thanksgiving this year, in whatever way you will be celebrating it during a pandemic, I hope you will think about gratitude, its rightful place in your life. How many gifts have come to you that were not deserved or earned by your own doing? And what kind of life is called for from people who are truly grateful for what God has given them? I wish you a good week and a happy Thanksgiving. I look forward to getting together again with you soon. In the meanwhile, be strong. Please be safe and be faithful. See you soon. Bye.